the lecture entitled Ethics of Medical Documentation. It will include consent forms, medical records, and a hint about the confidentiality. What do we mean by a consent? It is the patient approval or agreement on permission to receive medical treatment or therapeutic treatment or joining a research. I will talk sometimes in Arabic and I will repeat it in English to clarify some items. يبقى بالمنظر ده احنا بنتكلم على الموافقة المستنيرة أو الموافقة المبنية على علم إن المريض بيوافق على أي تدخل طبي خلاص سواء للتشخيص أو للعلاج أو عشان يدخل ريسيرش خلاص والموافقة دي بتبقى لها كرايتيريا وشروط. Let us start by the types of the consent. The consent may be implied, which means you haven't to ask the patient to give you a consent in certain conditions, like when he is coming to your clinic. This means he is approved on initial examination. If he is coming to your lab, this means he is approving for sampling. Okay, but just the general examination, just vaccination. So he is coming to certain act, and you couldn't or you shouldn't ask everyone, do you approved for general examination whenever he is joining your clinics. يبقى كلمة implied consent معناها إن هو مجرد دخول المريض عليك في العيادة هو كده موافق إن أنت تكشف عليه الجنرال العادي. ما تفتحلوش خراج، ما تطلبش حاجة مثلا هعمل له لا بون مارو اكزامينيشن، لا مثلا بون مارو سامبلينج أو حاجة، لا، لكن هو الجنرال اكزامينيشن. لو هو أنت في مكان فيه تطعيمات وهو دخل عليك يبقى هو موافق ان هو ياخد الفاكسينيشن، مش هتقول له اديك فاكسينيشن ولا لا. لو هو انت داخل عندك معمل وهو دخل عليك ده معناها ان هو موافق ان انت تاخد منه samples. The other types is the informed consent, which is agreement obtained from the person, either a patient or a volunteer, which whenever they are joining the research, or from an authorized representative, from parents, for example, for their children. It is providing information by you as a physician to the patient to let him take a decision about the therapeutic interference or diagnostic interference or for research purpose. يبقى هي من اسمها informed consent، بتدي information to take the consent on this information. Third type is called anonymous consent, which is usually in psychological groups. Okay, whenever you are joining, it is a sort of anonymous. It is not specific. Do we have to take a consent? Yes, we have to take a consent because it is part from healthcare consent articles. Okay, and this is carried out for either therapeutic, as we said before, preventive medicine, palliative care, diagnostic care, cosmetics, any health-related purpose. Okay, and of course the research. So, who can give you this consent? Can I take this consent from a mentally affected person, from unconscious person, from a child, from a teenage? No, we cannot take a consent from these persons. So, I will take a consent from a sane, conscious, above 18 years person, from himself. Okay, you are taking an appointment with that patient and you are giving him the data or the details, and then you are taking his consent. Whenever there is some preventive uh, conditions like being below 18 years or affection of sanity, okay, in this condition you will take this approval or this consent from the legal authority or what we call a legal guardian من الوصي. لو حد سنه صغير أو حد ملكاته العقلية متأثرة بناخد الحكاية دي من الوصي. Sometimes we are taking a patient's spouse consent in certain conditions if it is the operation or the intervention will affect the life of both. And we are taking sometimes a patient's nearest relative over the 18 years whenever this 18 years old is unconscious or not safe. We can take the consent all the time except in cases of emergency. When there is a condition, a life-saving measurements for the patient, no one with the patient, okay, you have to interfere and you are taking a second opinion from one of your seniors, okay, and this will be documented on the medical record that it is the best for the patient life-saving measurements, and this is not occurring in each country. In most of the countries, they are approving for waiving the consent in emergency condition, but not all in all countries. So before going on and taking the risk for doing something for someone to save his life, be sure that the country laws approving your interference. So, to take this consent, you must meet the patient, you must know the patient through the regular doctor-patient relationship. Okay, you are taking this form after you are explaining the data to the patient. Whenever you are planning to take a procedure, so you are planning to take certain interventional procedure, you are talking to the patient and give him time to think and respond to your consent for approval. And for the consent to be valid, it should be voluntary. You understand the meaning of voluntary. Don't force the patient. You are not deceiving your patients. Okay, you are just explaining what is going on, what is the risk if he doesn't do these procedures, and then he should sign this voluntary تطوعي يعني. This condition will affect the validity of the consent. If you are forcing your patient, if you are terrifying him, if you don't sign this, just like now, I will throw out of my hospital. No force, no fear, okay? And it should be after sufficient information. So to be clear and to obtain a valid consent, it must be given the person with legal capacity, sane, conscious over 18, and he have a proper intellectual capacity to understand what is going on about that procedures. This consent form should be written in a language that the patient can understand. It should be given freely and voluntarily. It should cover the procedures that you are carried on. He must be understanding what is going on in this procedure in a simple way, of course, and what is the risk and what is the benefit from these procedures. At the same time, you must offer an alternative treatment if it is present. If there is a choice between several methods of treatment, for example, if I have an enlargement of my thyroid. I can treat it conservatively by tablets or by surgery or by whatever. Okay, you should offer the patient the two way or the two methods. The person must have time, okay, and explanation for that procedures. Give him the opportunity to think, and there must be a witness for whatever you are going to approve. You should document your consent. لازم يبقى في ورق مكتوب بالconsent form دي، مش مجرد كلام مع المريض. When the proper documentation, you are preparing this document of consent with all the items that have been given, and it will repeat it again for you. It should be dated, signed by the patient or the guardian. A witness, it's preferred to be one of his relatives. Don't involve the nurse in this process, because sometimes they can be alleged that you are deceiving me and the nurse joining your deceiving process. This document of informed consent should be prepared in a duplicate, and a copy will be given to the patient. The other copy will be kept in the medical record. So, whenever you are going to make an informed consent for treatment or procedures, what you should write? Okay, you should write the name of the patient, the name of the disease, okay, your diagnosis I mean, okay, then you will mention the nature of the decision or procedures that will be carried on, the alternative, the risk, all the types of the risk known, the benefits, okay. Uh, there should be a statement at the end of the paper that I read this or I read this and I understand every word before signature or before the patients are going to sign it. Okay, because it is one of the lawful criteria. And it should be another statement that I accept this intervention or this procedure. It is one of the legal parts also. What about the standard consent form in surgery? Besides the patient identification data like the name, the number, the age, and address, then you are going to mention the diagnosis and the procedures that will be performed, the types of anesthesia, its complication, the name of the medical practitioner that will perform the procedures and the anesthesia. And you should write a permission for extending or extended surgery if you are expecting that you may find some complication or some extension of the surgery. For example, you find a mass or a tumor or something, and you may need to extend your surgery. If you are expecting this, please write it and don't perform it without the approval of the patient or his next of kin or his family. Um, there should be a statement that the person who are performing the procedures has explained the nature of the procedure to the patient with the risk, and he is approving. Another statement, all this for the law, another statement to indicate that the patients had received and read it carefully all the explanatory notes and is approving. Then there will be a signature from the patient or next of kin, and the signature of the practitioner and the signature of the witness. This should be prepared in two forms, and one will be with the patient and another form will be in the medical. Okay, after all that, if you are doing all this and the patient suddenly say, no, I don't want to perform your procedures, and he insists, and you are trying to convince him without any good reasons. At that time, you should take what we call a refusal of treatment, that you are advising your patient about the risk if he is not doing these procedures, and he understands this, and his mental capacity is very good, and he insists to make an act against your advice. He should sign this for you. This is a form in Arabic form to let us say simplify and make what I said before in an Arabic form. Okay, المادة 28 في لائحة آداب المهنة. لا يجوز إجراء فحص طبي للمريض أو علاج دون موافقة أو مبنية، اللي هي الموافقة المبنية على علم، أو الموافقة المستنيرة من المريض أو من ينوب عنه قانونا إذ لم يكن المريض أهلا لذلك، ويعتبر ذهاب المريض إلى الطبيب في مكان عمله موافقة ضمنية على ذلك. في حالات التدخل الجراحي أو شبه الجراحي يلزم الحصول على موافقة مبنية على علم من المريض أو من ينوب عنه قانونا كتابة، إلا في دواعي إنقاذ الحياة. بالنسبة للقانون المصري بيوافق على جزء إنقاذ الحياة إن هو ما ناخدش منه consent. لو أنا على الطبيب الذي يدعى لعيادة قاصر أو نقص الأهلية أو مريض فقد الوعي في حالة خطرة أن يبذل ما في وسعه لإنقاذه، ولو تعذر عليه الحصول في الوقت المناسب على الموافقة المبنية على عين من الولي أو الوصي أو القائم عليه، كما يجب عليه ألا يتنحى عن علاجه إلا إذا زال الخطر أو عهد به إلى طبيب آخر. Suppose you are not following what I said and you are not taking the informed consent. In Egyptian law, there is an article called 268 from the criminal law that if you are interfering and you are not taking this consent form, it is considered a sort of harassment, and this will make you exposed to an imprisonment from 3 to 7 years according to the age of this person. Let us move to another point, which is the medical confidentiality. It is the right of the individual to have personal identifiable medical information kept private. So, this information should be available only to a physician in the record form, in a healthcare or insurance personnel if it's necessary. Let us clarify, is the confidentiality of the patient a point just in ethics forms, or it has a legal consequence if you are not respecting this confidentiality? Whenever a patient comes to your clinic or in the hospital, he will talking about his medical complaints, and you are knowing about his medical information, and sometimes you are knowing some of his secrets if he necessitates to say to you. All these should not be disclosed unless with specific permission to release. So it is not right from you to sit beside your colleague, a physician colleague, and say, you know that patient named Fulan al-Fulani or named X or named Y, and he is in the third floor and he is suffering from this and this, and he gained this from whatever secrets he said to you. Okay, this is breaching or breaking the confidentiality. Okay, it is unethical, and if it is proved that you do this, it is crime and may lead to imprisonment if the patient accused this by accusing you by breaching this confidentiality. You have no right to supply anyone with this information even after the death of the patient. Primarily, it is an issue trust between you and your patient, a sort of honesty, and it is an ethical manner from you to towards your patient. If the patient be sure that you are not breaching this confidentiality, he will be willing to seek the care. Sometimes you can confronting with stigmatizing disease, such as reproductive problems, sexual problems, sometimes psychiatric health concern. If you said that this patient is manic or depressive or has a psychological problems, you know from your community that this thing can be stigmatizing for him. So don't disclose this except in certain conditions. What is this condition that you are allowed to divulging the secrecy of the patient and breaching this confidentiality? This happens when there is a notification of communicable or infectious disease, and this should be mentioned to the health authority. The legal requirements in certain conditions like notification of birth, death, drug addiction, abuse, okay? Sometimes you have to divulge this to the relative if your patient is mentally troubled or child, okay, and you need to take care of your patient. For example, your patient have epilepsy and he may gain attacks, okay, and he is unaware on this, and you should inform the parents or the relative that they should take care of. Of course, you can divulge this by the permission of the patient himself. Okay, in cases of life insurance, if you are the physician of this insurance company and the patient coming to you and you find he has a heart problem or he has a malignancy or whatever his medical record, you should inform your company. It is not a divulging the secrecy of the patient. If your patient accusing you by anything, you can defend yourself by using his medical information, but to a certain extent. Okay, not all the medical information, but what is necessary for you to defend yourself. If your patient has a violent tendency, he will kill someone, he'll come to you and say, I will kill someone or I will commit suicide. Okay, you have to divulge this secrecy. If he is coming to you and say, I will make a bomb to explode a certain building, you can safeguard national security. If your patient, as I told you, he has suffering from abuse or neglect, you are authorized to divulge this to the authority for the sake of the patients and in case of mental illness. And if the patient is incompetent or minor, of course, you will uh, tell his guardian or parents about his medical condition. What about the crime? If your patient coming to you and said, I committed a crime, are you going to divulge this or not? This is a very critical situation. I hope you are not exposed to it. Because it is easy if he is coming and say, I will commit a crime, you are just notifying the family and maybe the police, and no one will be in harm, even your patient. But if he is committed the crime and someone else will be accused and maybe have a sentence in prison or he will be executed or something like this, at this time you had to go to the legal authority. But you should know that your syndicate will stopping your license. So that's why I'm saying it is a very critical situation. Okay, and it will be a long time before you are practicing medicine again. By the criminal law, they said if you are knowing about a crime and you are not notifying, you will be uh, sharing in this crime. So, if there is a condition to breach the confidentiality, it must be released to the proper authority. Birth certificate or death certificate will be released to the, or communicable disease, it will be to the Ministry of Health, for example. Okay, if there's something crime or something, it should be to the uh, Ministry of Interior and so on. You should breach not beyond what is required or relevant. And the reason for disclosure must be documented in the record, why you had to divulge the secrecy. And before this, you will inform the patient that you had to disclose this information due to the condition that has been approved and laid by the law. Suppose someone coming to you and say, you are divulging my secrets, you are hurting me, I'm exposed to hurt, either physical or psychological, okay, and you know this secret through your profession. المادة 30 من لائحة آداب المهنة بتقول لا يجوز للطبيب إفشاء أسرار المريض ولا الاطلاع عليها بحكم مهنته إلا إذا كان ذلك بناء على قرار قضائي أو في حالة إمكان وقوع ضرر جسيم ومتيقن يصيب الغير أو في الحالات الأخرى التي يحددها القانون. مادة 310 من قانون العقوبات بتقول كل من كان من الأطباء أو الجراحين أو الصيادلة أو القوابل أو غيرهم مودعا إليه بمقتضى صناعة أو وظيفته كسر خصوصيته من عليه فأفشاه في غير الأحوال التي يلزم القانون فيها بتبليغ ذلك يعاقب بالحبس مدة لا تزيد على 6 شهور أو بغرامة لا تتجاوز 500 جنيه. This is a part of the lawful article number 310 criminal law that whenever there is divulging of the secrecy of the patient except for the conditions approved by the law, there will be imprisonment for the doctor for 6 months or by fine don't exceed 500 pounds. The conflict of interest أو تضارب المصالح الديفينيشن بتاعه it is an opposition between private interest and official or professional responsibility of a person in a position of trust, power and authority. ممكن الكونفليكت ده يكون personal، حاجة ليا مصلحة شخصية فيها، ممكن يكون financial، حاجة هكسب من وراها أو حاجة هتخسرني، ممكن الاثنين، أو non financial consideration عادة بتبقى حاجات للباور وحاجات للسلطات وحاجات إيه مصالح أخرى أو لناس أنا يهموني. It has the potential to influence or compromise professional judgment in clinical service, research, consultation, administration and so on. يعني مثلا مشروع متقدم لمكان لكلية مثلا، خلاص المشروع ده جاي عن شركة أنا شريك فيها، خلاص أقوم أأثر على الناس أو أقوم بالأثوريتي بتاعتي أبوش البيبل إنهم يقبلوا هذا المشروع عشان أنا ليا فيه مصلحة، سواء كانت مصلحة مادية أو غير مادية. If you are exposed to this conflict of interest, what you should do? تعمل إيه؟ From the beginning, you should avoid or disclose or recuse. The first method is to avoid. Avoid a situation اللي هي فيها conflict of interest. أي حاجة فيها تضارب مصالح الأفضل إن إحنا ما ندخلش فيها. في بعض المعاملات المالية الكوميرشال والفاينانشال والحاجات دي sometimes بيبقى فيه some benefit. لو some benefit without harm to others it can be accepted. Doctors and pharmacists should not accept gifts or benefit unless it can be clearly demonstrated that such gifts or benefit wouldn't influence their decision. الهدايا اللي هنطلع فيها مش عارفة مؤتمرات، هنجيب جهاز للصيدلية أو جهاز للعيادة أو الحاجات اللي هي من هذه النوعية. ليه؟ لأن it contribute to the welfare of person professionally. It doesn't reasonably appear to bias professional judgment, or it enhance one's professional knowledge and skill, and it doesn't diminish the dignity or autonomy of the profession. If you are in a situation and there is conflict of interest and you cannot avoid this situation, in this condition you will disclose, you will tell others that I have a conflict of interest in this position. This means you are an honest person. Okay. اما بيبقى في مشكلة في حاجة زي كده لازم نقول ان في conflict of interest. على سبيل المثال عندنا مثلا حد بينشر بيبر، والبيبر دي نتيجتها ممكن تؤثر على شغلي، خلاص، وبعتوها لي للتقييم، لازم اقول انها ممكن تأثر على شغلي، وبالتالي I can refuse it، ارفضها من اساسه. دي حاجة من الحاجات اللي احنا بنشوفها كتير. الاكت of disclosure ده is a process of transparency. The foundational to proper professional ethical conduct is the intent to be honest, accurate and complete. المهم ان احنا نكون honest ونعلن الحاجة دي، يا الناس وافقت ان احنا نبقى involved يا الناس رفضت ان احنا نبقى involved. الديسكلوجر بيبقى both for financial and non-financial relationship to the condition or to the situation, and this is an ethical conduct. Many clinical research or teaching scenarios can potentially foster a natural tension between the professional obligation والpersonal preference key. حاجات في teaching ممكن هخسر حاجة، هلوز position، خلاص، ممكن البوزيشن بتاعي يخليني أثر على ناس تانية، بحيث ان مثلا ما نعينش حد، ما ناخدوش في حتة معينة. اوكي، الحاجات دي بيبقى فيها mispresentation. The last method is recusal. Recusal is action of withdrawing from the situation when one's participant create bias that could adversely influence the decision. لو أنا في موقف أنا فعلا ممكن أثر على القرار، أنا أنسحب من هذا السيتويشن. A recusal ده may occur because of the professional's financial interest in or personal ties to one or more of the parties. يعني لو دخلت مش عارفة حد قريبي مثلا، خلاص، أو حد معرفتي أو حد هتكسب من وراه، خلاص، this can influence my decision. يبقى it's better to withdraw from this position. Thank you.